I woke up like I always did, early, quiet, careful not to wake my wife. Though to be fair, it had been a while since she seemed to notice whether I was in the bed or not. We still shared a mattress, technically, but not a life. Not anymore. I made coffee, opened the blinds, and watched the soft orange creep across the fence line. It was the kind of sunrise that used to make me feel grateful. Now it just reminded me that another day had started, and I still didn't know what the hell happened to my marriage. She walked into the kitchen barefoot, wearing the silk robe I bought her for our 10th anniversary. Turquoise, with white trim. Used to be she'd wear it and smile, do that little spin, and ask if she still looked good in it. This morning, she wasn't spinning. In her hand, a champagne flute. At 6:42 in the morning. On a Monday. Champagne. Not juice. Not coffee. Champagne. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. Just glanced up from her phone and said, "Oh, you're still here. No good morning." No smile. Just those 4 words like I was a roommate who overstayed his lease. I stared at her for a second, and I swear something inside me quietly snapped. Not a big crack. No drama. Just the faintest ping, like a wire giving out under pressure. "Early meeting?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She shrugged and took a sip. "Not really. Just felt like dressing up for myself." Her robe shifted a little as she leaned against the counter, and that's when I saw it. A mark on her collarbone, faint, purplish. A hickey. Like we were back in high school. Only we weren't. She was 38, married, and had taken her wedding ring off 3 weeks ago because it felt tight. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just filed it all away. Like a contractor noting water damage behind drywall. Later that morning, I got in my truck. Told her I was heading to work. I wasn't. I circled the block, parked 2 houses down from ours, and waited. Why? Instinct. Call it gut. Something told me today wasn't random. At 9:27 a.m., a black Audi pulled up. A man stepped out, tall, confident, button-down shirt open at the collar. In his hands? 2 coffees. He didn't knock. He entered a code on the keypad and walked straight in. She gave him the door code. I sat frozen in my truck, engine off, hands on the wheel. My house. My front door. My damn keypad. I didn't move. Didn't shout. Just stared like I was watching my own life on someone else's Netflix subscription. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't an affair. This was a second life. One she'd been living for a while. And I just stumbled into the opening credits. After that, I went straight to the bank. Asked for transaction history from the past 6 months. The clerk didn't blink. Just printed it all and stapled it into a tidy stack that felt heavier than it should have. I took the papers to my brother's garage. He runs an auto shop with a dusty office in the back. I locked myself in and started combing through the charges. That's when I found them, the hotels, the jewelry store in Charleston that does custom engraving, the flight tickets she never mentioned, all under our shared account. She was spoiling him. With our money. It wasn't just betrayal. It was logistics. It was effort. Planning. And I realized she wasn't sloppy. She was confident. Too confident. She thought I'd never notice. She didn't know what I was capable of when I did. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. That would come later, maybe. No, that night, I was awake because my brain had switched modes. I wasn't grieving. I was gathering. Every minute detail, every suspicious late meeting, every last, "I'm staying at Sarah's tonight," that now made perfect, ugly sense. You don't realize how much data your marriage holds until you start combing through it like a crime scene. First thing the next morning, I went to see Ethan, old friend from high school, now working in IT security. The kind of guy who can clone a phone while eating a burrito. We hadn't talked in years, but he owed me. I cashed in the favor. I handed him Madison's email address. Just that. No questions asked. 3 hours later, I had access to her cloud storage. And what I found there? Voice memos. Not texts. Not photos. Voice memos. She was recording little love notes to him. Whispered giggles. "I'm still sore from last night, you animal," kind of notes. Or worse, little rants about me. About how Ryan still thinks we're just having a rough patch. Or, "He made me lasagna again," like we're still pretending. It felt like someone reading my own obituary, only I was still alive to hear it. I copied every file to a hard drive. Backed up the backups. Made a folder called Evidence and stared at the name for 10 straight minutes. Then I called Don Merrick, real estate lawyer turned quiet fixer. Helped him renovate a flooded garage 2 summers back. Now I needed him for something a little more surgical. When I handed him the files, Don skimmed a few voice notes, then looked up at me and said, "You want war?" I shook my head. I want her to lose. Everything. But I wanted to look like Gravity did it, not me. He nodded. Then we go slow. She thinks she's still winning. That's the key. Let her keep smiling until the floor vanishes. We started prepping. The bank records? Highlighted. The hotel stays? Timestamped. The audio? Indexed. By the end of the day, we had a package labeled Madison C. Full disclosure. That evening, I sent a message to her boyfriend. Just 3 words. I know. Congrats. No threats. No drama. Just a calm, steady whisper through the crack in the door. He replied hours later, "You're too late." So that's the kind of guy he was. Cocky. Arrogant. Probably 10 years younger. The type who smiles while pouring a beer in another man's kitchen. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. He thought this was a sprint. He didn't know I ran marathons. Back at the house, Madison was her usual distant self, moving through rooms like she was casing them before a sale. She asked me if I could go to my brother's that weekend. Her college friend Zoe was visiting. Zoe, who lives 3 states away, who hasn't been to our house in over 5 years. I smiled. Of course. She smiled back, mistaking permission for ignorance. That's the thing about people like her. They think once you stop reacting, you've stopped paying attention. But I was watching everything. Saturday morning, I packed a bag, kissed her on the cheek, said, "Have fun catching up." She was already texting someone before I hit the end of the driveway. But I didn't go to my brother's. I drove 2 towns over. Checked into a nondescript motel with off-white walls and those sad little fake plants in the lobby. Hooked up my laptop, opened the home security app, and waited. At 3:12 p.m., my phone pinged. Motion at the front door. There they were. She was in heels. He had his arm around her, laughing like they lived there. She poured wine. He kicked off his shoes. And I pressed record. I watched them for over an hour. Not because I wanted to, hell no. But because I needed every second recorded, every gesture, every careless kiss in my kitchen, every laugh echoing through my living room. It wasn't about pain anymore. It was about evidence. Proof. Leverage. They were playing house. She made him dinner, pasta, ironically. Lasagna. My recipe. I could see the damn Pyrex dish. I watched him sit in my chair at the head of the table like he'd earned it. Like this was his life now. He didn't know that chair had a wobble. I never got around to fixing it. Around 7:30 p.m., they disappeared into the bedroom. I didn't watch that part. Not out of mercy, just didn't need it. I already had more than enough. The next morning, I backed everything up, put the videos on a flash drive, and labeled it, "Do Not Lie." Then came the message from Madison. "Hey, how's your weekend? Hope the guys aren't keeping you up too late. Miss you, face-blowing kiss." That emoji. The audacity. I stared at the screen and imagined how many other times she'd done this. Sent sweet nothings while he zipped up his jeans in the hallway. How long had I been the side character in my own life? But I didn't respond. Silence was the point. Silence was control. Monday morning came cold and gray. The kind of weather where the sky looks like it might collapse under its own weight. Perfect. I showered. Shaved. Put on a clean button-down shirt. The blue one she said made me look too serious. Tucked it in. Packed the envelope. I drove back home just as she was leaving for work. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey, I thought you were staying an extra day?" Changed my mind. She gave me a long, searching look. I gave her nothing back. Just nodded once, kissed her on the forehead, like she was already history, and walked inside. Then I made 2 calls. First to Dawn, confirmed the documents were ready. Second to the HR department at her company, anonymously, of course. I told them there was potential ethics concern involving an executive employee using company equipment for explicit personal content. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Later that day, I got confirmation. They were investigating the matter further. She had no idea yet. Still thought she was the magician in the room. Tuesday morning. She came home early from work. Eyes red. Makeup smudged. She tossed her bag on the couch and walked past me like I was a stranger. 5 minutes later, I heard the wine cork pop. I didn't say a word. She finally broke the silence around dinner. "Did something happen at work today?" I looked up from my plate. Calm. "Why do you ask?" She hesitated. HR called me in. There's some kind of anonymous complaint about misuse of company devices. They said it might have been a mistake, but... She trailed off. I shrugged. That sucks. She stared at me. For the first time in months, I watched fear creep into her eyes. She didn't know how much I knew. And that terrified her more than confrontation ever could. That night, I got a text from Ethan. Zach's married. Wife's name is Kelly. 2 kids. Lives 1 town over. Of course, the man bold enough to walk into another man's house was a fraud in his own. I didn't say anything to Madison. Not yet. She was unraveling just fine on her own. But Kelly? She deserved the truth. I wrote a short, honest letter. No threats. No judgments. Just facts. I believe your husband, Zach Callahan, is having an affair with my wife. If you'd like proof, I have it. I'm sorry you have to hear it this way. I dropped it off myself, under her welcome mat. No name on the envelope. Just the words, for Kelly, written in black ink. The next day, I saw Madison on the porch, pacing like a trapped animal. Phone pressed to her ear, muttering, face flushed. Zach hadn't shown up. Kelly must have gotten the letter. The illusion, the fantasy she built so carefully, was starting to crumble. And I hadn't even gone public yet. I always knew Madison lived for appearances. Instagram perfect brunches. Polished smiles at company events. Her entire identity was curated like a gallery exhibit, clean, aspirational, heavily filtered. So when she insisted we still attend the charity gala we'd RSVP'd 2 weeks ago, I said yes. Why? Because I already had a plan. And because she had no idea how quiet revenge could be when it's dressed in a suit. I arrived separately, of course. Told her I'd meet her there. She didn't argue, probably grateful not to have to coordinate our entrances. That night, she wore a long emerald green dress, sleek and expensive, hair curled to perfection. She looked radiant and doomed. The ballroom was packed with the city's finest, donors, executives, influencers, all sipping overpriced wine and complimenting each other's shoes. I worked the room like I used to back when I still thought networking mattered. Then I saw him. Zach. He was standing at the bar, laughing too loud, clearly a few drinks in already. Alone. I almost pitied the guy. Almost. He spotted me first. His smile faltered, just for a split second. Then he recovered, raised his glass. I raised mine right back. Then I walked to the stage. See, I knew the AV guy. Helped his cousin close on a house last summer. I'd called in a favor. A flash drive was already queued up in the system. All I had to say was the word. The host had just wrapped up her thank you speech. I stepped up casually, leaned into the mic, and said, before we return to cocktails and jazz, I'd like to share a short tribute. To growth. To truth. To seeing things clearly. The lights dimmed. The projector whirred to life. Madison was halfway through a sip of wine when the first image flashed. A hotel receipt. Then another. Then messages, screen recordings of texts between her and Zach. Gasps rippled through the room. Laughter died. The clink of glass froze midair. Then came the photos. Madison. Zach. Half-dressed. In hotel mirrors. Holding hands on balconies. She stood up, fast, like she'd been stung. Turn it off, she hissed. Too late. Zach was pale, stumbling toward the exit. A few people started filming. Phones were out. Madison's eyes locked onto mine across the room. I didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just stood beside the screen while her perfect life burned behind me. When it ended, I stepped forward again. Calm. Measured. I'm Ryan. I was Madison's husband. Past tense. I've filed for divorce. I've also submitted evidence to her employer regarding ethical breaches. And to those wondering, yes, everything tonight was legal, documented, and very, very deserved. I left my wedding ring on the podium and walked out to polite, stunned silence. No shouting. No police. Just whispered names and wide eyes following me out the door. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, voicemails. Dozens. From her. From Zach. From her mom. From an unknown number that I'd bet a month's salary was Kelly. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I logged into social media. Madison's accounts had gone private overnight. Zach's? Deleted. The organization hosting the gala posted an apology for the unscheduled content and quietly scrubbed Madison's name from the committee list. By noon, 3 HR reps had contacted me through LinkedIn. Seems I wasn't the only one who saw the video. When Madison showed up at the house, I didn't open the door. She pounded her fist on the wood like it owed her something. We need to talk, she yelled. I opened the window just enough to speak. You don't live here anymore. Her makeup was smeared. Eyes puffy. I'd never seen her cry without an audience. But this time, No one was watching but me. And I didn't feel sympathy. Just closure. You humiliated me, she snapped. I shrugged. Funny. That's exactly how I felt last week. Then I closed the window. She came back the next morning, not knocking this time, just standing on the porch, hugging herself, like the cold might forgive her if she looked pitiful enough. I opened the door halfway. She didn't say hi, didn't say sorry. She said, "They've suspended Zach, pending investigation." I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. Well, I said, you gave him a baby. I gave him HR paperwork. Seems fair. She flinched. Not dramatically, but just enough that I knew the balance had finally shifted. She tried to soften her voice, play that gentle tone I used to fall for when we argued, and she didn't want to sleep on the couch. We made a mistake, Ryan. I nodded. Which part? The affair? The pregnancy? Or announcing it to your husband at a public event? Her lips parted, like she had a comeback ready. But nothing came out. And then, the line that stuck with me. You're acting like I meant to hurt you. I didn't laugh, didn't raise my voice, just looked her in the eye and said, Madison, you planned baby announcements with your boyfriend and legal countermoves against your husband in the same week. That's not a mistake. That's strategy. She started crying. Not soft, pretty tears. Not movie scene crying. Messy, heaving sobs. The kind that only happen when reality comes crashing in and the scaffolding finally gives way. She tried reaching for me. Please, we can fix this. I stepped back. No, you can't fix this. I already did. I fixed me. Then I closed the door again, not with a slam, but with the quiet finality of a chapter ending. In our town, the social circle is small and vicious. Brunches, fundraisers, wine clubs. Madison used to be the queen of it. Curated outfits, filtered selfies, hashtags like hashtag grind and glow and hashtag power couple life. Now, I didn't have to say a word. I just made sure the receipts made their way into the right inboxes. One by one, the pillars of her reputation started to crumble. The pregnancy post disappeared. Her followers dropped. Her job put out a statement about a transition in leadership. The charity she volunteered for removed her name from their donor wall. She was radioactive. 2 days later, I got a call from someone I didn't expect. Zach's wife. Her name was Kelly. I think we should talk, she said. In person. We met at a quiet cafe across town. She showed up in a blazer and no makeup. The look of a woman who's survived something but hasn't had time to process it yet. She handed me a folder. Printouts. Screenshots. Hotel overlaps. Texts. Turns out Zach had a pattern. Madison wasn't his first, just his sloppiest. Kelly looked me dead in the eyes. I'm not here for pity, she said. I've got kids to protect. You've got a future to rebuild. This helps us both. She slid the folder toward me. Use it however you want. Just burn them both. I didn't even have to think. Deal. That night, I sat on my back porch, staring at the sky, sipping whiskey from a chipped glass. I wasn't smiling, but I wasn't seething either. You'd think after everything, the affair, the lies, the baby that wasn't mine, I'd still be boiling. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. That was the most dangerous version of me Madison had never seen. The version that didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't ask why. The version that just moved. 2 weeks after the gala, I left town. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. Just packed my truck with some clothes, a stack of books, a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving since my 35th, and drove north until the highway turned into dirt. Flathead Lake, Montana. A place I hadn't been since college. Rented a quiet cabin near the woods. No neighbors in sight. No signal unless you stood on a certain rock and leaned east. That was the point. I chopped wood, caught trout, burned dinners. I breathed again. I didn't think about Madison or Zach. Not directly. I thought about clean air, cold water, and how it feels when silence isn't empty. It's earned. And then, on the third night, there was a knock. I opened the door half expecting a ranger, maybe a drunk hiker. Instead, it was Eli Mason. College buddy. One of the real ones. The guy who once carried me home after a tequila-fueled night and swore he'd never speak of it again. He hadn't changed much, still built like a linebacker, beard thicker than logic, and a grin that said, I know something you don't. Heard you were going full lumberjack, he said, holding up the postcard I'd mailed as a joke. Didn't think you'd actually do it. I stepped aside, shook my head. How the hell did you find me? You think I don't know who you are, he said. You don't run. You reload. We sat on the porch, bourbon between us, stars overhead. The kind of quiet where every word matters. "So," Eli said eventually, "you really nuked the whole thing, huh?" I nodded. She handed me the match. I just struck it. He laughed. "Always said you were too damn patient to stay broken." We talked for hours. About old stories. About what came next. He told me he'd been watching the whole thing from afar, saw the video, heard the whispers. He worked in corporate law now, down in Denver. "You know what your problem was?" he said, somewhere around our third glass. "Enlighten me." "You were trying to build a life with someone who was busy building a ladder out of you." That line stuck. Because it was true. I built the house. She measured windows for something shinier somewhere else. The next morning, I got a voicemail from Madison's sister. She sounded tired. Not surprised. Just resigned. "I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone in our family. But I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of it. And honestly, I saw it coming. I just didn't say anything." She paused. "Rachel's been staying with our parents. Dad doesn't say much anymore. Mom hasn't hosted bridge club since the gala. And Zach? Word is he's on leave. Might not come back at all." I deleted the message after listening to it twice. Not out of anger. It just didn't matter anymore. By the end of the week, I'd stopped checking my phone altogether. Eli stayed for a few days, helped me reinforce the roof, taught me how to properly gut a trout. YouTube had failed me, and reminded me who the hell I used to be before I got lost in Madison's polished, curated hurricane. Before he left, he said, "You don't have to move back yet. But when you do, don't go small." Then he tossed me a card. A contact in real estate back in the city. Said the guy owed him a favor. "Figure you'll be ready sooner than you think." And just like that, I was alone again. But not lonely. There's a difference. I spent the next few days rebuilding things, the fence, the fire pit, myself. And on a quiet Thursday morning, while I was drinking coffee out of a metal cup and watching the mist roll off the lake, my phone buzzed. A name I didn't expect. Kelly. Zach's wife. Just 3 words. "We need to meet." I met Kelly at a small cafe halfway between Montana and reality. Neutral ground. 2 hours of mountain roads and too much coffee got me there early. She arrived exactly on time. No makeup. Jeans. A sweater that looked too big, like it wasn't hers. But her posture? That was a woman who'd already walked through fire and wasn't interested in sympathy on the other side. She sat down across from me, slid a folder across the table. Neatly labeled. Color-coded tabs. This wasn't a conversation. It was a transaction. "That's everything," she said. Financials. Travel overlaps. Texts. Even a few voice memos. Zach's not just a cheater, he's a dumb one. I opened the folder, skimmed the first few pages. It was gold. Confirmed everything I already suspected, and then some. She had the receipts, the dates, even photos of gifts Madison bought using our shared card. "Why help me?" I asked. She didn't even blink. "Because I know what it's like to be turned into a footnote in your own story. And I have 2 kids who need stability more than they need a charming liar for a dad." I nodded slowly. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small envelope, and pushed it toward me. "That one's personal." I opened it. Inside, a photo of Zach and Madison. Nothing scandalous, just a selfie from a beach in Mexico. Except, that trip never existed on our calendar. She had told me it was a marketing conference. Even packed branded notebooks. There was a note paper-clipped to the back of the photo. Kelly's handwriting. "She wasn't his first, but you were his last mistake." She stood up, left a 20 on the table, and walked out. Didn't look back. I drove home in silence. Not back to the city. Not yet. Home was the cabin, the lake, the fire pit. I poured a drink, sat on the steps, watched the sky shift from blue to orange. I felt done, not destroyed, not even proud, just finished. Like closing a door that used to creak every time you walked past it. The next morning, I called Don, my lawyer. "We're done waiting," I told him. "File the final packet. Serve her." He didn't ask if I was sure. He knew. A week later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, signed divorce papers. And one note. From Madison. Asterisk, "I was wrong about you. I thought you'd break. You didn't. I thought you'd crawl back. You didn't. I thought I was smarter. I wasn't. I hope someday you find someone who sees you the way I should have." Asterisk. No apology. No asking for forgiveness. Just an ending. I folded the paper once, threw it in the fireplace, and watched it burn. I moved back 2 months later. Not to the house we shared. I sold that. Too many ghosts. I bought a piece of land outside town, flat and open, with a big barn and a crooked fence that I planned to fix myself. Eli connected me to the builder, and in 6 weeks, we had a small, one-story home that smelled like pine and hope. And one evening, while I was organizing boxes in the barn, a truck pulled up. I didn't recognize it at first, but when the door opened and Kelly stepped out, holding 2 cups of coffee, no folder in sight, I understood. This wasn't business anymore. We sat on the porch, talked about nothing, laughed once or twice. Before she left, she said, "You look lighter." I shrugged. "Less to carry." She smiled, turned to go, then paused. "I hope you don't mind if I call again sometime." I didn't answer. I just nodded. You know, people talk about closure like it's something loud. A big speech. A slam of a door. But most of the time, it's quiet. It's just peace. It's waking up and not checking your phone. It's hearing her name and not flinching. It's knowing you're no longer in the storm, you're standing on the other side of it, soaked, but solid. I lost a wife, but I found something better. Myself. And I'll take that trade. Every damn time.